We're all about turning a crappy situation into something positive.
$250,000 of credit card debt.
Still remember the day when no one turned up.
Throw it in the garbage and start from scratch.
I could give myself a chance, so I started something.
I mean, I think that counts as from poop to gold.
Our sponsor for this episode is our 14-day video script challenge.
Yes, we are sponsoring our own show.
Yes, we are.
Welcome back to From Poop to Gold. I'm your co-host, Benton Crane. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. I have here with me Roberto Blake. Welcome, Roberto.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So Roberto is a certified YouTube educator, and he is a public speaker and an online business coach. So he brings a ton of interesting knowledge and background to the table. We're excited to dive in, get a little bit of his story and some of his insights. So let's start there, Roberto. Mm-hmm. How did you end up where you're at today?
Well, I mean, it depends on where you want to start. I mean, do we want to start with how I grew up? Do we want to start with when I was a broke college student? Or do we want to start with YouTube? Where do you want to begin?
If you could identify kind of what I would call a pivotal moment in your life that kind of set you on the course to be here today. And if that pivotal moment was college, let's go there. If that pivotal moment was childhood, let's go there.
I think it was when I was at a crossroads in my my corporate life and my corporate career.
Okay.
But I was also, for many years, had been struggling with depression. And I'd been struggling with depression like since college.
Okay.
I had bouts of what I don't think you could call depression in my teenage years and high school, even with the bullying and other things. And, unfortunately back then I was even like suicidal. I was a little emo back then, but it was a legitimate problem. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of issues going on. I had some anger management issues because of situations and circumstances with my life. Things going on with my sister was in the process of being identified as having a chronic illness. She was in and out of the hospital. I was sad, angry, confused, and frustrated with that. She got a not great diagnosis, but thankfully she's fine and she's still alive today. And they didn't think she'd make it past high school. And my little sister, in many ways, I consider her to be one of my best friends, if not my best friend. She's one of the only people who knows my full story and has been with me the far majority of my life, So that was rough. When
somebody that close to you, when their life is essentially in jeopardy, that weighs on you in undescribable ways.
Yeah.
Talk us through a little bit of like, what is the feeling going on behind the scenes as you're living that?
Mostly in my case, a lot of fear and anger. And you never know which day you're going to feel more. The soul crushing weight of all the anxiety and waiting for the other shoe to drop, or angry and frustrated at the world, angry at God. There's a lot there. And then when you already feel your life is hard enough and difficult enough, you're like, how else am I going to be tested? What did I do? It was a constant question. No one had anything for me but platitudes, and that was that best case scenario. Other than that, people were giving me crap because of what they wanted or their expectations. The school system was kind of fighting with me because, interestingly, I was exceeding in my grades, but I was being penalized in my grades despite performance for not always showing up to school or participation or this or that, because I couldn't always be in school with all this stuff that was going on. And there was a lot of other stuff too on top of that. And then there was a point where I was just getting bullied so bad that I started cutting class. I could get straight like A's on I could outscore, and I did many times, everybody in the school on all the exams and still fail the class because I was being docked on participation and attendance. And I was getting bullied so bad that also sometimes I would skip class, not to be one of the cool kids. I would skip class and I would just hide in the school and cry because life was just that bad and I just wanted to disappear.
Just a dark, dark time.
Yeah. But I had a couple of really good friends who got me through it that I wouldn't be here today without. So like that's a real thing. Having the right people in your life is, I think, one of the most important things that's taken for granted. And it's why I'm so glad that we live in an age of the internet where not everyone has to be isolated. If you don't have people in your life, like physically that you can like put hands on, that can like give you a hug, you have people who might be able to emotionally support you because they get it and they don't share the same city or state or even country with you, but they share your values and they share your experience and they can help you with your burdens. And so
it's an opportunity for connection.
It's so powerful beyond what we can do for business or for, having a message, just for feeling heard and supported. I think it's probably kept people from a lot of loneliness and isolation and saved people's lives. It was one of the only things I looked forward to, besides, like, I dreaded going to school aside from seeing a few people. And there were a couple of teachers that I really always look forward to seeing and learning from that could get me excited. But other than that, I was just in a lot of pain, and I was always just like waking up and I'm like, oh, signing up for more pain, resigned to my suffering. And I didn't really know how to process that between like fear and anger and everything else. And when you're a kid, all your emotions are heightened. And I just couldn't wait to get out one way or another. And so college, I thought, was going to be in many ways this like chance to start over in this bastion of freedom. And in some ways it was, and it was a different experience. But then this funny thing about being poor sometimes is no one ever likes to self-identify as poor, or at least that was true in my time. Like, I graduated high school in 2002.
Okay.
So I'm 35 years old. I'm an old millennial, back when they used to call it like Gen Y. And
Yep.
So I'm like, right at that edge, right between Gen Y and Gen X, right? So, it was a different time in 2002. The internet was a different place. The world was a different place. And when you come to the realization that, and you already know from, in my case, I already knew and was privy to the financials, like, of my household, after my parents' divorce and all kinds of things, and with 3 younger siblings, and then the debt from all the hospital bills. I understood what the deal was, and I started like working at a young age, and not because, I want to buy a car or any of that stuff. I've always hustled and mowed lawns, side gigs, like my whole like life and childhood. And sometimes back when things were better, that was, I got to save money, and I was like a fiscally disciplined like kid, and but I was also I had this weird business when I was 9 years old. I don't think I've talked about it a lot. So when I was 9 years old, we actually lived in Atlanta for about 3 years. My dad was a Marine. He was stationed at the base. I think it was Dobbins Air Force Base. And so when I was 9, we lived in an apartment complex. It was the first time we lived outside the military base, aside from whenever we lived in New York. And it's funny. So at the front of the apartment complex, you had, the dumpster where everybody throws their chests. It's like this big old dumpster and trash compactor thing, right? We lived in the back of the apartment complex in the neighborhood. And so like all the neighbors and everybody used to put their trash bags like in the back of their trunk or car, smelling it up. You got stuff leaking. It's like, it's not a great situation. It's gross to get to the thing. And I came up with this brilliant idea where I would take my bike, put the trash bags on the handlebars of my bike, and I would ride the bags to the dumpster, and I would charge my neighbors by the bag. Okay. And then I was like, I got my friends in on, because I realized I can only do so many of this so many times out of the day or on the weekend. It's like, but with more bikes, we can do more bags, right? And so I set up a business around it, and I set up a schedule and rotation. So I started a waste management company at 9 years old. And awesome. Then we would on the weekends take the money, and I would like pay out everybody, but I would also then take a lot of my earnings and I would throw pizza parties, and we would throw pizza parties in my yard. And like that was like one of my first businesses as a kid. Like Gary Vee had his franchise of lemonade stands. I had my waste management company.
I love it.
Yeah. So, but I say that to say that I've always thought entrepreneurially, and I've always thought about money, but like in high school and college, I had to think about it in a very different way, because unlike friends who were having fun or buying their first cars, I had to help, with my family's finances and situation. Everything was serious for me. Stakes were higher for me.
Yep. So it's not just a personal need, but now it's a family need.
Exactly.
And my family needs me. I've got to step up.
I've always like had that kind of mindset, and it's where, when in my message and what I tell people that like, hey, if you start an online business, you do YouTube, whatever, understand that this is an opportunity to get some financial freedom or to be able to provide for your family in a different way, and where you might have a little bit more control if you do it the right way. And that's very serious for me, because I know what it's like to struggle. Like I know what it's like. I mean, I have a 6-figure business now, a multiple 6-figure business, but like everyone likes to say they came from nothing. I take that message very seriously in a real way. I can tell you what it's like to like look in the driveway and see like not, you know, like see like, and then, you know, your mom's crying, you're seeing the car get towed away and you're like, you know what happened. You know, I know what that's like. I know what it's like to see something turned off because a bill didn't get paid. I know what it's like to walk into a pawn shop and walk out crying because you got to pay a bill. Like that's something real. And I know that many people around the world, many Americans are going through a hard time financially right now. And for me, as long ago as that was, it's still fresh in my mind. That those scars, that pain, that sticks with you. Like you think about that, you always have a little bit of a pit in your stomach of like, what would happen if you ever had to go back to that? But like for me, it's like I'm smarter and far wiser and have been far more experienced, and I've lived through and taken my punches, taken my lumps, taken my battle scars, to where it's like that kind of thing doesn't scare me as much as I think it does other people to start over, because I know I'd be starting from a place that makes me far more powerful than the majority of people that are going through it right now.
Right. I've noticed I have 4 kids, and my kids are growing up in relative abundance, right? And I think back to my childhood of having to scrap and hustle and grind and go without.
Yeah.
And those moments were so key to making me who I am.
Exactly.
That it scares me that my kids don't get those same opportunities.
You know, but the thing is, transcending suffering is important. And, you know, there in Eastern philosophy, they have a saying that says suffering advances the soul. And I think it's interesting, but I do also think there's a part of it that's just a way of trying to make peace with your pain, which I understand, but I don't always completely agree with that, because I want you to move past pain and transform it into purpose is part of like what I try to tell people. And what I would say in your situation, because I know when I have kids one day, you know, God willing, please, but I need a girlfriend first. Step by step, day by day. Like anyway, 90s kid. But what I would say, you know, not being a parent, but just being somebody who was a kid with a rough thing, I would say I think about that a lot. And what I've thought of for the future that you might want to take away from is you can find other ways to challenge your kids and make them understand and value and earn things without it being from a place of necessity. You can still challenge them and put the right healthy amount of pressure on them, because I think that there is a such thing as, you know, you can be somebody that comes from what you could argue is a privileged background, but you could still have a chip on your shoulder about not wanting to be in the shadow of your parents or not wanting to be soft. And I think that just being challenged and having challenges put in front of you and having discipline and a work ethic and saying, yes, all your needs are taken care of, but that's no reason not to work hard, you know? And I think you just have to put some conditions in place of like, I want to challenge you because I never want to, it's my job to prepare you in case the world changes, because it probably will.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So let's go back to your story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got a little picture of the background, and I think we're kind of starting to see a vision of kind of this this dark time that you went through that kind of became this pivotal point in your life. Talk to us about how that set you on a course to get you to where you're at today.
Well, again, I had to, in my own way, hit rock bottom. And my version of it was going deeper and deeper into the well of my depression. I kept striving, I kept working, and nothing ever seemed like it was enough. I went through college. I went to community college because with my grades, with the school situation, I got a few partial scholarships. I got a few opportunities. And then there was stuff because of my track and field, because I was a track and cross country champion. Shout out to Coach Mike Lawrence. You saved my life. You gave me more discipline than anybody else. You gave me, a way to channel my rage. You gave me a way to turn pain into purpose, and I can't thank you enough. You made me a champion, not just in the track, but in life. I love it. Yeah. Wow, I did not think that was going to happen. What happened with me is I was getting to a point where suicidal ideation was part of my daily routine. That's not a good place.
It's not a fun spot to be.
That's not because the way I was rationalizing it, which is part of why depression is so sinister, is from your point of view, when you're depressed, leaving your suffering behind by any means necessary, escaping your pain, is a completely rational choice from your point of view when you're going through that. And then whatever you have to do to create that situation becomes more palatable. It doesn't feel like insanity. It feels like if you're showing up every day to be tortured, not showing up starts to seem very reasonable. And that's a dark thought, and it's not anything healthy that I would ever glorify or advocate, but I'm making it painfully clear to anybody that if somebody tells you that they're going through depression, and I know that sometimes people don't know what depression is, consider the possibility that it's real for them, and then try to just offer them any comfort that you can and give them a reason to wake up tomorrow if you're in a position to do that, because it actually helps.
Yeah, it's this is real stuff. This is something that's impacted my family in a very real way, and so I love the advice that you're sharing around.
And it becomes important because what happened that changed my life was I reached a crossroads where I said to myself, if you can't fix your mindset, if you can't fix your mind, you're going to die. And that's a scary, sobering. It's like, no, it's like, if you keep going down this route, Roberto, you're going to die. And it's like before your time, before you've accomplished truly anything meaningful, before you've, helped anybody in a significant way, you're going to die. And that's very sobering. And I asked myself, what can I do? I don't want to die. I just want to stop suffering. What can I do? And so I started talking to myself and saying, okay, I had to change my self-talk. And I was like going through it. I was like, what is causing you so much suffering and pain? And I was like, well, it's these circumstances. It's what I'm going through. It's not having enough money. It's not having control over my life. It's not liking, I love what I do. I don't like the circumstances. I don't like not having autonomy and freedom and control over this. I don't like what, sometimes my ideas being taken from me or not getting, my due for it. I like not being compensated. I didn't like some of the bullying at work. There was a lot of things going on. I was at the peak of my career and I was unhappy, wildly unhappy. And I realized that's like, I could have a day off and I could get a phone call and whatever plans I had were completely forfeit. That's not control over my life. I could be asleep, get a call, have to wake up and go in. That's not control over my life. I was like, I have no control over anything in my life. And that was causing me tremendous pain. I also didn't have the financial ability to help people, friends, family that were going through things. I couldn't do anything but offer the same platitudes that meant very little to me. And so that meant I had no power. I had no ability to act on the behalf of anyone else. I didn't have the ability in my mind to be an active participant in my own life. I was a passenger in a vehicle, and I just wanted to jump out or run the thing off the road. And that's what life felt like. And I'm like, I need control. I need a vehicle that takes me to a destination that I actually want to be on, because I'm on a road that's nothing but pain and it ends in a very bad place. And so that metaphor, like, I was like, okay, pull over, stop, get out of this vehicle, let's take a walk. And so I asked myself, what could I do every single day for the rest of my life? And let's assume that it's 1,000 years and not feel like it's suffering. What would you do? I was like, so I played a game with myself. I was like, okay, pretend you're a genie or pretend you're like, a trickster god, and like you're now getting ready to like grant yourself a wish. Now outwit the trickster and get exactly what you want out of life. Figure out what you can say, what wish you're going to have granted. And I was like, I just want to create awesome things and put them out into the world and share them. And I just want to teach other people that they could do that, because creativity is the only thing that I keep coming back to. And the ability to create and make things is the only thing that really makes me happy. I never feel happier than when I'm drawing, writing, taking a photo, editing a video, doing Photoshop. Like, these are the only things that really give me any peace. And I feel like I'm in control, because when I'm a creator, I'm tapping into the power of creation. I'm tapping into that inner divinity, that godlike power that all of us have, that we were granted, is the ability to create something, to turn our thoughts into things. That's the power of creation. Like, I don't like, and without getting super, philosophical and like, like that power of creation exists in every single one of us in humanity. And that's our inner divinity that we don't take for, like we take it for granted. It's a tremendous gift. We have the power of transformation. What other creature on this planet has that?
Right.
And that's our power. Like that's what connects us to the universe. Like, so for me, that's everything to me.
And I imagine most people have had at least a moment in their life where they're in that kind of state of flow, where they're in their zone, their moment, their passion, and it's almost always around creating.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And so when I came to that realization, I was that it's like everything I do is in the service of that gift, and I want other people to tap into that gift, and I want to realize my potential, that I always want to see how far I can go. My natural curiosity, I would always learn things. I would always read a book cover to cover. I'm insatiable in regard to my desire for knowledge, because when I was a kid, that quote, "Knowledge is power," always stuck with me. And then the Mortal Kombat quote, "There is no knowledge that is not power." Like, so for me, I took that literally as a mantra and as a part of my philosophy in life. And so I always wanted to acquire new skills. I always wanted to acquire new knowledge. I always wanted to learn from people older than me. I had a hard time relating to people my own age because they didn't have, selfishly, they didn't have as much to offer me beyond, the emotional value relationship. But like in terms of knowledge and experience, most people my own age didn't have enough to teach me. And therefore, as unfair as it might seem, I felt like they had lesser value. And so I always sought the company of people who are older, that lived life and could pass on knowledge and cheat codes to me.
Yep.
Because I wanted to excel. And so that's always why I was a misfit, and I didn't, like, among other things, and I didn't fit in, is I was also the artsy, like, eclectic, like, crazy kid. And so I had this moment, this rock bottom moment of realizing this is my truth. This is my why. And that's where I came up with my philosophy, create something awesome today. Because I was like, every day for the next 1,000 years, like creating something every day for the next 1,000 years. And I got happy all of a sudden. I was like, that's what I was like. So I was like, so I can change my life. Like, all right, you have this thing. Let's keep going down this thread, Roberto. How does this change your circumstances? What can you do? What are you trying to change? I was like, I need control. Creation's power for me is also the ability to control what I create. I'm creating things in my job every day, but I don't have control, and I don't have freedom, and I don't have autonomy. It's like, can you change that? I was like, maybe. And I was like, okay, let's stick with maybe. That's something that's optimistic, right? So like I started thinking about, you need to change your ability to control what you create. You need control over your time. You need control over your energy. You need control over your ideas. You need control over your finances. Our word is control. You can take control back over your life because somehow it was forfeited. Somehow you gave it to other things and other people.
This is a really big deal for creatives. Like, we deal all the time with comedians and writers and filmmakers, and I've observed that for so many of them in their life, they feel like they're stuck between two really crappy choices of, like, I either have to be this starving artist, or I have to go like sell out and go into like corporate America and take a soul-sucking job in a cubicle or something. And when a creative is able to get past those two crappy options and get the control that they need to, like you said, they're able to make a living, have the financial stability that they can then control what they work on. They can control the creative that they're building, and it's life-changing. Yeah,
that's the greatest blessing. That's the greatest gift. And that's why my title is Creative Entrepreneur, because that's the future. And it's the future of the 21st century economy for a lot of people. And I think like it's the cure to starving artist syndrome. Is like starving artist syndrome is a mindset and it's a disease, and I'm the cure. Like, so like, a little facetiously, but like I feel that way because I found a way forward. And it was rooted in making daily actions aligned to the ambition of taking back that control and taking my pain and turning it into purpose and getting relentless about it. And realizing the other thing is I want control over my relationships. When you work for somebody else, you don't control who you're in a room with, and it's very hard to control how you're treated, and you can be taken advantage of, you can be abused, you can be demeaned, devalued, belittled. And I realized that if I can't control who I'm in a room with, what I can do is I can change the standard of how people treat me. And it took some risk, but I was going to change the standard of how people treat me by first starting with the standard of my self-talk and how I treat myself, but then offering consequences for how I'm treated. So in general, with just changing my standards, like, and realizing that I began my plan to like exit, to going back to freelancing, and then later that would free up me mentally, and then I'd be able to, and then I did eventually start my online business, built out my personal brand, used my deep knowledge of a corporate background, not only in design, web design, graphic design, and agency work, but also the years I spent as a social media manager, doing Google AdWords, being Google AdWords certified, working within the corporate appliance. I absorbed all the knowledge, even from people I didn't like. There is no knowledge that is not power, whether it's how to build a business, how not to build a business, how to treat people, how not to treat people. I absorbed everything and I used and deployed all of it. But now I was doing it in service of myself instead of being part of the appliance, and now I could retain all the value and I could do with it what I wanted.
So let's take that. Let's fast forward a little bit to what you've built today.
Yeah.
Tell us about what it looks like now.
So now I get to create awesome things and share them with the world. And I also get to teach other people how to do the same thing. And I've been doing that for a number of years. And today I get to do it through, I do stuff free online with the YouTube and with the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. I have a YouTube channel, multiple YouTube channels now. Was able to grow an audience of 400,000 plus subscribers on YouTube, which is mind blowing for me. I thought with my personality and the experiences I had in high school and college and in corporate, I didn't ever imagine that thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people would resonate with me, my message, what I'm trying to do, or would want to learn the things that I know. It's very humbling and I'm very grateful. And it's overwhelming a lot of times. I still am very surprised when people come up to me and tell me, Roberto, I started a career in graphic design because of you. Roberto, I got a job as a social media marketer because of you. I'm the first person in my family to be able to make a decent salary and to have and not do manual labor. I'm the first person in my family to take our inherited creative ability. And I'm a professional photographer, Roberto, and I got started. I picked up a camera because of you. Like, I cry when people tell me that. There was a kid at a conference, I think it was 2 vid summits ago. There was a kid who I was at Gary Vee's keynote. I thought he was trying to go talk to Gary, so I was trying to get out of his way. Turns out he wanted to come up to me. And he told me, thank you so much for your videos. They completely changed my life. And then I was like, and the thing is, it was a point where I was like feeling a little off that day. I'm wondering like about the impact of what I do, because I was in a little bit of the metagame of like comparing myself at the moment like to other people, something I desperately tell creatives to avoid, but it's hard. And you see so many people crushing it, doing this, doing that. And I was like wondering about the impact. Is like, does anyone really care what I like do? And so this kid comes up to me and I'm like, oh, great. He's probably going to tell me he got a good job or they just started his channel or whatever. So I was like, I asked him, and now I ask everybody this question. It's like, how have my videos helped you? And then he pauses for a moment. He's like, I was unemployed for like 6 months and I was feeling like a loser. I was like, oh, cool. He got a good job. It's like, I started feeling better. He's like, and now I have a 6-figure business and I'm a job creator.
Wow.
And then I literally started crying because like I'm tearing up right now thinking about it. Like the fact that I could have an impact and have that ability to transform in some small way somebody's life was just amazing. And I was like, this is why I get up in the morning. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, what if I decided not to be here? How many people would I have missed out on impacting and giving value to? And like, I made a difference. I mattered. Like,
yeah.
And
if that's not purpose, what is, right?
I almost cheated myself out of my purpose and my potential and the promise of that by getting overwhelmed by my emotions and my circumstances and my pain and not realizing it was temporary and that I could transform and I could transcend. Yeah.
That's incredible. What a story. Roberto, what's the best way for our listeners to follow you? I want them to be able to experience you.
Yeah. So you can follow me on YouTube at youtube.com/RobertoBlake2. And you can also listen to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, which is on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify now as well. So basically everywhere podcasts can be found. I'm really proud of that show and that podcast. And it's been really challenging because I wanted to get the audio perfect. It was like the biggest struggle in YouTube for me was always never being satisfied with the audio. And now I'm like, yes, I nailed it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's something that in doing our own podcast, we've gone through the rounds of trying to get the balance between controlling everything and having perfect audio versus just shoot it and get it done.
Let it ride.
Yep.
Actually, in 2017, A lot of people don't realize that, like, because I was already doing consulting and, you know, helping brands and doing things, and also other entrepreneurs. But I then started doing one-on-one coaching and mentorship, and then I started a membership program. And the reason that I did it, like, is because of my coach Mike Lawrence. Being on track and field, I learned the power of camaraderie and support, but also structure and discipline. And like, I believe that's the foundation of what can make people successful, especially if you're a creative. If you're a creative, best thing in the world is a blank canvas. You know what the worst thing in the world is? A blank canvas. It's this endless void of possibility stretching out before you, and you don't know what to do with that. And that can be overwhelming, and that can be terrifying. Freedom is great and scary, but a little bit of structure goes a long way, a little bit of guidance and help, and then a little bit of support, both in terms of like the emotional support, and then the support of sometimes resources or just encouragement, but also constructive criticism and feedback. And so
in our writing process for our ads, we've discovered that creativity thrives under constraints.
Yes.
And so putting some constraints around the project, sometimes the constraints can be timelines, sometimes the constraints can be budgets, whatever it is, but just having those constraints in place.
Because it's a challenge, and creativity craves a challenge. Like, I don't even think I've said that out loud. Your creativity craves a challenge. It demands it. And so I want to do that for people. I benefited from, like, you know, that structure and that support. And so I started Awesome Creator Academy, which is really where a lot of my focus is right now, is, you know, creating, not only courses, but doing one-on-one coaching and creating resources, templates, and things for creative people, for our peers, because there are things that I've experienced and things that I've benefited from them. Like, if people knew this, it could change their business, or if people knew this, they would think differently. Like, one of the biggest challenges is I've been pushing our peers in YouTube to absolutely diversify their income, because their anxiety and frustration with the platform and AdSense is like, they've turned YouTube and they've turned social media and being an influencer, they've relegated it. They've defended, like, oh, because, you know, you get the criticism, it's not a real job, but it's not supposed to be a real job. It's supposed to be better than that.
Yep.
But people have relegated it in their own life to being a job. I'm like, didn't you just try to escape that, your last job? Why would you turn this into a job by relying on the platform for everything and then being frustrated? They've become beholden to the platform instead of using it as a vehicle and a tool.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the people who built influence on YouTube, you know, back in the early YouTube days, but then didn't translate that into influence on other platforms as well. Mm-hmm. Most of those early YouTube creators have kind of gone the way of the dinosaurs if they didn't continue to evolve across platforms.
And for some people, it was going to be, and it was a good thing for them to become part of the industry, and they've been able to have influence there by becoming part of. But not all of them wanted that. A lot of them wanted to stay independent, and but they made a practical choice, which is perfectly fine. And that's where it becomes, you know, it's funny that there's a phrase, and I like have mixed feelings about it. There's a phrase called grow up and sell out. Now, I hate the word sell out, because the thing is, sell out is about compromising your values and your beliefs. And I think that a lot of people get accused of being sellouts when it's like, no, you're accusing someone because you have a standard and you're holding them to that. Mm-hmm. Selling out would be about them betraying their standards, not the one you assume they should have.
Yep.
And so I don't like
that's a good distinction.
It is. And so, like, it's important. And I want to lean on that, because, like, my criticism of people who give quote unquote valid criticism or call people sellouts or this or that is like, it's like, no one's obligated to do it for the culture. Everybody's obligated to do it for themselves and for their family, and whatever lines in the sand, whatever their standard is none of your business.
That's right.
It's none of your business. So, like, you cannot have valid criticism if you don't have context on what somebody actually believes. And by the way, people are entitled to evolve and change and grow into different beliefs. Yeah. And I certainly did. I grew into a belief of, I went back to my core of my childhood where I was happy and optimistic after many years of suffering through depression and anger and cynicism and a little bit of nihilism. Like, you know, literally. So to be angry at the world, to be angry at God, to transcend that, to have nothing but gratitude is like, why should I have been consistent in my beliefs when they weren't serving me? And when they put me in a place of pain? No one's obliged to be consistent in their beliefs. You're a human being. You shouldn't be consistent to the detriment of real context and to the detriment of your growth and well-being and the positive things you can do in the world. I would rather you be wildly inconsistent by going from negative to positive, and then people feel like you sold up or you stopped being part of the culture of angry, cynical, bitter. You sold out on us. It's like, good. You sold out, you grew up, and you grew into something better. Happy for you. Like, if you want to use the word sellout, I think in the culture of YouTube, some people do need to grow up. And I don't think it's the same thing as selling out to say, you know what? My value system changed with my circumstances and with perspective. I think people change when they grow up and they have kids. I think people change when they get into a serious relationship. I think people change when they change their tax bracket. And I think that realistically, we're resistant to change in people that we form an emotional bond with as viewers sometimes, or even just in life. But that's kind of unfair because we're putting an expectation that someone should stay where they are to make us comfortable instead of what's best for them and just being happy for them.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think about that. So I'm trying to coach and mentor creators into building a brand to last and taking their freedom, independence from the platforms into their own brand and becoming creative entrepreneurs and content creators instead of YouTuber, Snapchatter, Instagrammer, streamer. Take back your identity of a creator, and then understand that this isn't a job where you're supposed to be taken care of. This is your responsibility to build something to last.
Those platforms are just tools.
They're just tools. They're just vehicles. They've made it a destination. You know what I hear today that makes me sad? People say, YouTube is my dream and being a YouTuber is my dream. And I'm like, that's an identity. What if YouTube dies? So your identity can be completely stripped of you because the platform dies, or what if the platform rejects you, or what if you don't make it on YouTube? So your identity is forfeit. Identity is one of the most powerful concepts in the world. The name, the title, the moniker you take for yourself, it's a fundamental signal to the universe of what you are at a fundamental level. Like there's a philosophy and an idea called naming. And so to name yourself is to choose, and it's to choose what you are at a fundamental level, and your actions and your destiny is guided by that.
This is like the core of personal branding you're talking about, right?
It is. It's the core of it, and it's the core of what I believe, and that's what that freedom and choice. And why I fight so much for the idea of individuality, critical thinking, and independent thought, and why I'm very rogue, and why I've always rooted myself in the idea of being a misfit, because I realized that to fit in is to, in many cases, to be mediocre, to have a standard, and to sometimes to have to be in exile until you're not.
Right.
And the thing is, you can build the culture and the tribe that you want, and a place to belong, and you can offer other people belonging that are outliers, the people like you, the misfits. And so that's what I believe in, and that's what I've built around my brand around is and it's why I don't worry about going viral because that would be to be mainstream. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, of having the ability to appeal to a mass amount of people, because that's value, right? So everything is predicated in value, but I choose my value based on what I truly believe, sometimes to the detriment of what will be the most successful, because I will be happier. I'll be happier sometimes at a smaller thing on my own terms, because I value freedom.
Yep.
And I value the autonomy, and I value the control, and I'm willing to make sacrifices or make concessions to retain more control. And I try to teach creators, give up money in a brand deal for more creative control.
For sure. And that's the exact same thing at Harmon Brothers, is that when we're evaluating a potential client and doing a potential campaign, creative control is at the core of everything. And so our clients have to understand going in that they're coming to us and they're going to trust us creatively. And if that's a problem, then we need to know that up front, because then it's not going to be a fit, because that creative control is just, it's so essential.
Absolutely. I think trust is everything. And it's I don't want, if working with me causes you anxiety, it's not a good fit. Yeah. So I'm happy to turn down the money and to spend time with somebody that I'm not trying to convince.
Yep.
I don't sell skeptics. I tell people, it's if you're cynical, if you're a skeptic, it's I'll wait till you're not. Like I'll be
I love
here
it.
when you're
I
not.
love that attitude.
Yeah, when you've had your your come to Jesus moment, when you've embraced optimism and positivity, or when I have taken the responsibility to create the right context for you to understand what I actually am, and you're ready, I'll be here. But until then, like you're not ready, and I'm not going to try to convince you.
I love it. Roberto, do you have anything coming down the pipeline that you want to give a little sneak peek to our listeners?
Actually, I do. It's actually something really, really powerful. So I'm working on some content, and I'm also working on some training stuff over at Awesome Creator Academy. You guys, if you want to visit that, it's awesomecreatoracademy.com. And what I'm working on right now is the framework of giving everybody the framework that I've been working on with my coaching clients that has produced my most successful coaching clients, hundreds of thousands of subscribers in YouTube. It's something I've also been doing in my speaking engagements. And there's a young woman that actually started her brand back up from nothing less than a year ago, October of last year. Tosh Point Fro Eats. She went from 0 or close to 0 in October of last year. She now has 100,000 on YouTube, 100,000 in TikTok, 100,000 Instagram around her eating mukbang challenge videos. And then there's a young man, Skip. He just turned 18. Skip the Tutorial. 140,000 in YouTube. He went to my speech at VidCon last year, and he had 0 subscribers, or was it 200? No, he had 200 subscribers. He has over 140,000 now around gaming. The thing everyone says is saturated because, again, he listened when I said you have to be different and you have to offer something unique in value, and the value has to be clear. So the thing that I'm going to be teaching people, both in my upcoming courses and also in my training and in my free YouTube content, is the framework of what I call the video success system. And it's so powerful because, like we said, structure and support. There needs to be an understanding of, if you're going to do YouTube or any of these social media platforms that revolve around video, knowing your audience and knowing yourself is the foundation of everything. And people refuse to focus on that. They refuse to focus on, who do I offer value to, and how can I clarify that value and get it down to where it's a single idea. And so the beginning of it is getting people to focus on this specific idea, then being able to write really good headlines. You guys know better than anybody that writing a good headline, copywriting's a skill, getting that right.
Yep.
Getting the thumbnail to tell a story and to create the curiosity and the intrigue and the impact. The new deal is people are scrolling. 80% of traffic on YouTube is mobile now. So designing thumbnails is different than it's ever been, because now the goal is, 80% of YouTube's traffic is mobile. You have to be able to stop someone dead in a scroll now. So you have to design a thumbnail in a completely different way than we ever have. And so it's a lot of things like that. So it's like this 10-point outline. But the thing that no one talks about is you can do all the steps from every one of the YouTube educators. But what people are not being challenged on is, how effectively did you do that one thing? Did you really harness and develop and polish this skill? Did you do it to check a box? You didn't give yourself a 1 to 10 rating on how well you executed. And so that is important. So 10 major steps and a 100-point grading scale is like what I think is a great framework for saying I can make and produce not only quality content, but clarify my ideas, create context, and make this value and monetize it properly, which is, as you know, is the big conversation right now. Monetizing it properly.
Thank you so much, Roberto, for joining us on the show today. It's been a pleasure to get to know you better, to get to know your backstory, and to uncover your poop to gold journey in your life.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, and thanks for making me cry.
We've got a little gift for you. This is our book, From Poop to Gold.
Oh, great. So I'll have another copy so I can lend it out. Yeah.
There you go.
Because I have my own. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. As entrepreneurs and small businesses, we all kind of reach that point where we know we've created something awesome and we want to share it with the world, right? And it's that very next step that can oftentimes be really intimidating or really scary, or you just don't know where to go next, right? And the beautiful thing about this 14-day script challenge is you get your hand held from, okay, you have this cool product, now let's go research and find the exact way to present it and message it to the world in a way that resonates and gets people excited and they're ready to swipe their credit card and purchase. And in the 14-day script challenge, you get the opportunity to go through that step by step with our writers who have done it dozens and dozens of times.
You actually watch us go through each of the steps ourselves and create it with a real client, a real product, and it's a real campaign that's out there that's been very successful.
That's right. And the feedback that we've had on this thing has just been phenomenal. I mean, we get comment after comment and emails flowing in from people all over the world who have just raved about the impact that this has had on their business.
People tell us over and over again, it is just a huge value punch for the investment for this 14-day script challenge, and really gave them the tool set they needed to walk through it and make it happen.
And we've had dozens of students who have successfully taken the challenge, written their script, launched their ad campaigns, and driven success for their business. It's pretty amazing.
For more information, go to hbros.co/script.